Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Hope everybody's doing well. So this for this month, we're going to be talking about the band Accept. I was fortunate enough to see them about a week ago Sunday. Phil Shouse is a friend of the channel, and he was kind enough to comp me a couple of tickets. And if you don't know, that was the show that we did. They did not have a lead singer, but they did their best, all things considered, and I want to thank Phil again for doing that. But man, if you get a chance to see them now, Mark is back. Definitely go see them. They put on an absolutely killer show. But anyways, without further ado, let's bring in Pete and Martin. How you gentlemen doing this evening?
Doing great. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. Uh, so let's talk about Accept for a minute. So I think everybody, I'm pretty sure everybody they all seem to, I think they hit at the same time, probably for all of us. But Pete, what was your first exposure to the band?
Well, I've told the story many times, and I love talking about it. So I guess it was my junior year in high school, and one of my buddies is like, "Man, I got this album yesterday. You got to come over to my house after school to check it out." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Love hearing something new." We go back to his house, puts on this record. I, didn't recognize the cover or anything like that. He puts the needle down on the record, and all of a sudden you hear this, kind of scratchy thing and this weird music and Heidi, Die Hum, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" Right? And then all of a sudden that scream, and then and the guitar riff, and then like, holy cow, what is this? I was sold. So that, of course, is Fast as a Shark for Restless and Wild.
Right.
And, was one of my most listened to albums that year, and kind of never looked back from there. That was like a big deal. I mean, so many of us, were completely into that album and became instant Accept fans. And I had never heard Breaker or anything they did before then, never even heard the name Accept before. But man, with that album, you can be pretty sure that I was listening going forward. So then I caught them, on their next tour when they came over to the States. And yeah, so I've been listening to them for a long time.
Yeah, that's that's gonna be one of the best freaking openers on any record.
Killer.
It's killer, absolutely killer. What about yourself, Martin?
Well, I knew you were going to ask this question, so I racked my brains and tried to figure it out, and I did figure it out. So, the basement of Little John's drugstore, there was a big record department in Trail, BC, and I remember getting a Canadian copy of the second Accept album.
Right.
And they promptly went into the lower 3/5 of the pack because this was not a very good album. It reminded me a little bit of a non-Western country's version of heavy metal. So it basically was this sort of wobbly AC/DC-ish sort of album. And then after that, it was a Canadian copy of Breaker. So so this would have been grade 11. Then a Canadian copy of Breaker, and then possibly Restless and Wild next, or an import copy of what they call Chick with Chainsaw.
Chick with Chainsaw.
That's the nickname of this album. This is the band's first album. So yeah, it was a little bit of a dodgy start. This was like buying an early Crocus album kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
I'm kind of happy that I didn't get introduced to the band on.
Yeah. More on that later. Yeah. For me, it was watching their I was balls to the wall, right? And watching that video, and the synchronized flying V, and then they opened for Kiss, right? On was it the Lick It Up tour? Might have been Lick It. Around that, it was right around that time, And I'm looking at these guys, and I'm like, "Holy shit, man! This is like the heaviest shit." Like at the time, because the bands I was into at that time, I was into Kiss, Priest, I Maiden, but these guys were just like straight up, like in your face. Like, Balls to the Walls, like the heaviest thing. It was just so cool, and just I mean, and they were not trying to be anything that they weren't. They were like, we were straight up heavy. I mean, there are no pretty boys in the band. I mean, you look at Udo, he's his camouflage pants running around. You're like, holy shit, this guy means business, right? But just they made an impression, man. But Balls to the Walls, that was it for me. And then,
No pretty boys. What are you talking about?
well, you know what I mean, right?
Check it out. There you go.
There you go. Oh, they got their shirts off. Yeah. Yeah, well,
They were only kind of interesting looking when they had the flying V's over their shoulders. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, let's put it, that was not their main focus. Let's say that. All right, cool. So we're gonna do a countdown of our 5 favorite Accept albums, and we're just gonna go around like we normally do. So we'll start with Pete, and then we'll do Martin. So Martin, or sorry, Pete, what's your number 5?
well, I'm gonna go with Breaker, which is an album that I got like later on. I didn't really go backwards with Accept once I got into Restless and Wild. I just kind of went forward with them. I think the seeds for the sound that kind of became Restless and Wild, I think, started here. I love the title track. Midnight Highway is still a great song. It's got a great hook. I really dig that a lot. Starlight is fantastic. More so than the earlier material, I think this is where Accept is finally starting to sound like Accept. And I think this album holds up pretty well. It's still kind of early baby Accept, but there's enough on here that I think for me kind of drags it up above a couple other albums that I think were vying for number 5. So and the title track is just so awesome. So Breaker for me, number 5.
Cool. Yeah. Martin, what do you
I
have?
have a feeling there's a good chance Pete's and my list might be identical.
I think
But
all of
we'll see. We'll see. I was
All
thinking
hard.
that when I put this together. I'm going to go with Breaker.
Okay.
To me,
Off to a good start.
Breaker is this band's killers compared to Iron Maiden, the same way Accept is basically like, this is a much better album than the second album. This is a pretty heavy album compared to Accept, the other Accept.
Yeah.
And this is like the punk rock version of Breaker. But Breaker is frighteningly well recorded and well played. This sounds like a major label album. It is really well put together. So to have this to come from a German band in 1981, which, they're considered like the baby Scorpions, right? Same way Halloween is the baby Iron Maiden and Max Webster might be the baby Rush. This is definitely the baby, the usurper of the throne. And amazing production, great playing, great singing from Udo. The song Breaker is like an innovative early version of speed metal. Fast as a Shark gets all the credit, but Breaker is double bass and fast and really cool as well. Feelings, chugging, gallop sort of thing. Son of a bitch, awesome kind of stop-start one. So that's just a super well put together professional metal album. Very heavy for its time. Definitely an honorary new wave of British heavy metal album, and really one of the more capable, like I say, professional stadium rock, sounds like it's made by big stars kind of albums from a baby band.
Yeah. I've switched up my top 5 3 times because there's albums that, and my number 5, what I ended up with was one of the, when Udo came back, Objection Overruled is my number 5.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you why. I mean, it just has some just incredible muscular guitar playing from Wolf. I mean, Wolf is one of those unsung heroes. You know what I mean? When everybody's doing, top guitarists and, rankings of this and that. Wolf is never in that conversation. And man, when you do a deep dive on like I've have in the last, preparing for the show, you just get a whole appreciation for this guy. I mean, just an absolute riff monster and killer lead player. And I was, at the time that I mentioned, I'd seen them last Sunday playing. And when Wolf is playing, he's not even looking. He's just smiling. It's like it's just another day at the office. And he's just playing shit that's just like you're friggin', your hair's curling. It's like, my God, man. It just, and that record, the tone on his guitar is just so big and beefy and ballsy. Just incredible.
Sorry, Hack, I don't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to show that there's objection overruled. And what I always found funny about these, it's a trilogy of album covers. Yeah, there you go. That are all black and white with red on them.
That's right. Yeah.
And they all go together, right?
Yeah.
They're all good. They're all good.
The title cut is awesome. Bulletproof. The break part in the middle is epic. The lead is killer. Sick Dirty Mean is unrelenting. Donation. They every once in a while they do a very AC/DC-ish kind of song, and that was one of them. And I think it's very cool. This One's For You is another great up-tempo rocker. Talking about Breaker and then talking about this album, one thing I noticed about their songwriting is later on, the riffs become a lot more involved. The arrangements get a little more interesting. The lead breaks, like they do some amazing lead breaks. It's almost, I love when I'm listening to a song and you're just anticipating that solo because there's going to be a change, and then it's going to basically serve up the solo, and then of course Wolf comes in and just absolutely obliterates it. And that's there's a lot of that happening in this record and a lot of the records, like later on. Like when I say later on, I mean like 90s and forward. One example of that, This One's For You, and there's a lot of other examples of that where he does that. And objection overruled. I mean, this one, I'll tell you, if we're going to do honorable mentions, this one for me was tied neck and neck with Death Row. Death Row is, oh my God, it's just unrelenting punishment. It's like that puts hair on your nipples. Listen to that tune, that album, man. It's crushed. The title cut and that lead break, and when he does the off time, on time thing, and Sodom and Gomorrah, and oh my God, it's just just Prejudice. I love another, I loved going back and listening to these records, man. Absolutely. Of all the shows we've done, this may be one of my favorites in going back and going through these records again. But anyways, so I'm talking way too much. But my number 5 is Objection Overruled.
I think Wolf to me was always like a more metal Michael Schenker. Like he's a very similar style, but he's way more oomph to like his riffs and things. Whereas Michael, I think, is more a pure lead player who can play pretty good riffs too. I think that Wolf is an amazing riff guy and also an amazing soloist as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's the package, right? Like, I mean, he is basically, like the guy driving the riffs, driving the songs. He's the one. He's a folk. I mean, he's still the only original member at this point, but the guy just has a knack, man. Just for that genre. And he's, like I was saying earlier, he took that genre. I mean, they're kind of like the AC/DC of 80s metal. But that being said, they've expanded on it and they've made it more interesting. Whereas AC/DC is still kind of doing AC/DC. These guys took that genre and just like made it incredible and, more interesting and intricate and the hooky melodies and all that. And I can go on and on. All right. Anyways, number 4, what do you got?
Number 4, I thought long and hard about this, and I decided to go with what I feel is one of the great comeback albums of the last 20 years. And I'm talking about Blood of the Nations.
Yes.
This was, the debut of Mark Tornillo from TT Quick on vocals, and the first time that the band working with Andy Sneap on production. And man, I remember when I first heard this, I was like, holy cow,
Holy shit.
back with a vengeance.
Yes.
And this album is produced marvelously.
Yep.
It's crushing. The songs are exciting. Mark fits in really well because, you know, he's got that kind of gravelly thing going anyway. And he's not that different than Udo. I mean, man, there's some, you know, Teutonic Terror, the title track on here, Kill the Pain, Time Machine. I mean, this album just crushes start to finish. And it would start like a whole slew of releases from the band to this day that are really high quality.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe unfortunately, though, they kind of, a lot of them sound the same, which I think has to do with Sneap's production and, you know, the way they're writing their stuff. But you can't deny that they're all very, very solid to really good heavy metal records. And, but, you know, kind of like Iron Maiden's Brave New World, which was the big comeback for them. This, I think I feel very similar about, you know, Accept, and this being that first album back, you know, with the new singer, and just really kicking it out of the park. And I always, as much as I like a lot of the ones that came after this a lot too, I still have very fond memories of this one. So I really wanted it to be in my top 5 because I believe it is a top 5 for them. So yeah, Blood of the Nations, number 4.
More on that later. Yes, Martin.
More on that now. Blood of the Nation. Same thing, same reason. You know, this has about double.
God, Martin and I didn't talk about this at all during the last week.
There's double the excitement level with this one versus the other ones for all the same reasons Pete mentioned. But I saw them live on this tour in Toronto here at the Mod Club. You know, Mark was there. They were amazing. I think there's a lot of excitement and passion in this. You're hearing this kind of new thing for the same time, but yeah, that uniformity of the records going forward is just something that bothers me. I can't get past it, but there's enough variety on here. You've got fast, you know, Priesty Scorpions kind of stuff. There's some slower chugging things on it. You know, a bucket full of hate. The last one is really cool that way. Another slow one is Shades of Death. Pretty cool. It's got some keyboards in it. You know, The Abyss, dark, you know, with a mellow verse sort of thing. So there's some peaks and valleys on it as well. But yeah, it's just never, that's the one that has all the excitement of that, you know, getting together with Mark, who's a perfect choice for the band.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, my number 4, and you spoke about it earlier, is Breaker. You know, this, I mean, a lot of this stuff you guys already mentioned. This was the first album that Accept sounded like Accept. I wish that this had been their first record. That would have been amazing. Starlight, great opener. You know, there's some great up-tempo rockers on this. Breaker, Run If You Can. Burning, it's very rock and rolly, but still kind of cool. Down and Out is good. At times I hear a little bit Iron Maiden in this. You know, I hear a little bit Iron Maiden flavor in this. Just it's a great combination of riffs, catchy choruses, case in point, Feelings, Midnight Highway, you guys mentioned, just a great catchy rocker. Break Up Again. I mean, you know, I'm going to harp on Wolf here. There's a bit of a Wolf love fest going on if you guys haven't noticed, but but I mean, he does some just some absolutely beautiful guitar in this. It's a great ballad. The vocal is the bass player at the time. I'm going to probably say his name wrong, Peter Baltz. I don't know. But you know, when they do that melodic stuff, I actually really, really like it. I find a lot, you were talking about Baby Scorpions, I find a lot of their mellow stuff, especially later on, got really cheesy. These guys, their mellow stuff, I don't find it cheesy at all. I find it really just beautiful music, well written music with great parts, and you know what I mean. Yeah, like I said, should have been their debut. The lead break on Breaking Up Again is awesome. Again, Wolf's playing super. He can do melodic. He can do heavy rock. You know, there's enough good rockers on this, and enough melodic moments and hooks that make it a really, really good album. And that's Breaker. When did that come out? 1981. There you go. There's my number 4.
Beautiful high end on it too. The cymbals and the hi-hats just sound amazing on it, right?
Yeah. 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 All right, Pete, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is an album at the time when it was released I wasn't all that into, because I was like, oh man, this is kind of commercial sounding, and I was getting into much heavier stuff. But like all these years later, I realized that there's a lot of really great songs on this album, and that is Metal Heart. Man, the title track is great. Speaking of great solos, Wolf kills on that. Midnight Mover, such a great anthem. Up to the Limit, so catchy. Wrong is Right, Kick Ass, Screaming for a Love Bite, another really catchy song. Too High to Get It Right. I mean, Dogs on Leads, Teach Us to Survive, Living for Tonight, another really catchy song. Bound to Fail. I mean, this is a really, really strong album. And this, I think, should have been the album to really, really break them here in the States. And it never happened because, for me, I think the reason why this band never got huge in the States or in North America, Udo's voice is not for everybody. I mean, I know people who hear that voice and they're like, oh God, I can't stand his vocals. I think the music is tailor-made for, everything that was so popular at the time here, but I just don't think Udo equals mass acceptance by people who aren't, hardcore metal fans. But I think the songs were on here. This should have been an enormous album, and it really didn't do much of anything, sadly. But yeah, Metal Heart, my number 3.
Well, that was their attempt, right? To try to Americanize,
Yeah.
and get a little more traction. But yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, our list isn't going to line up. So my next one is Restless and Wild. Love this album to death. This is the UK later version. Oh, it's the black one. I thought it was the red one, but and then that was the original German cover, which you'll note on the back of Breaker, they're not burned, right? And then on the front of the next album, they are burned. Little bit like Power Age and Highway to Hell, right?
Yeah.
Reusing old album cover art. But yeah, love this album to death. Our band actually played Restless and Wild live, our 80s band Torque. Great album. A little raw. I do love it to death. I mean, it was one of my favorite albums for a bunch of years there. I think the songs are amazing on it. I find it just the one thing I don't like is that it's a little rough and raw. Not only in the production. I mean, it's a crushing production. It's a noisy, violent, cool production, but the arrangements even seem a little raw. Like they really seem like guitar, bass, and drums kind of thing with no smoothing of the edges. But Princess of the Dawn, I think, is the greatest except a guitar solo of all time. Really, really cool one there. And so many great, really well-written songs like Demon's Night, Flash Rockin' Man. You've got Get Ready, which is the party tune. So that's this album's Midnight Lady. But yeah, Restless and Wild, Ahead of the Pack, Shake Your Heads. All those up-tempo, mid-pace ones are basically my favorites on it, even more than Fast as a Shark. But yeah, just relentless, cool, crushing. So high quality, so much confidence in what they're doing. Basically, at that point, like we were like Scorpions, forget it. I mean, the best German band are these guys. These guys are running circles around you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's number 3.
You mentioned the arrangements. I mean, if you look at that's a prime example of what I was talking about earlier. Like the advancement in their arrangements and the riffs and the intricacies and everything else. That was kind of before that. It kind of started a little bit on Balls to the Walls, and then all their stuff later on, it just got more and more. Again, they expanded they made the songs way, way, way more interesting.
But oddly, Breaker sounds like a more expensive corporate album than Restless and Wild even.
Yeah, you're right. It does. Yeah, that's true. Well, my number 3, and Pete mentioned it before, and let me use my cheesy graphics here. I got Blood of Nations. 3 letters. OMG. Oh my God, what an absolute beast of an album. This is just unrelentless, just beating you over the head with the best freaking riffs and songs and vocals and big muscular guitar and heavy drums, and it sounds gorgeous. It just sounds fantastic. I love this record. Like Pete mentions, first album with Mark, first album in 14 years. It's almost like you could taste the hunger, right? Like these guys were back for, with a vengeance. They really wanted to put out something good. Um, and speaking about Mark for a minute, I mean, I loved Udo. Udo was great, but Mark, I think for me, I prefer him. I think he's a little better singer. He's got a little more range, a little more control. And when he's belting, funny enough, he does sound a hell of a lot like Udo. But I think he is the perfect replacement. I don't think they could have done that any better. I mentioned great production. I mean, there's so many high points on this record. The opener is killer. Beat the Bastards, Teutonic Terror, The Abyss, Shades of Death, Bucket Full of Hate. Oh, damn. That's probably my favorite song on this record. It's unrelenting. It's an absolutely crushing album. Awesome tunes, and they always, and the one thing about Accept is when they always have those catchy choruses. So it's not just like bang 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 all the time. They always have something, always a hook to kind of grab your ear. I love the marching order backup vocals too. When they all get on the mic and I love that. And that's become a trademark now from album to album. They're always doing those marching order backup vocals. I should mention again, I got to talk about Wolf's guitar playing again. Absolutely beautiful lead on the mellower Kill the Pain from Wolf. He can play some really beautiful melodic lines as well as crush it with heavy leads. And this to some might be a little bit long because it is it's about 50 some odd minutes, but
yeah, all the newer albums are pretty long.
Yeah, but there's enough there's enough good songs and enough variety that it's, for me, I can take it. Give me more. It's just, yeah, of their later generation of records, this absolutely takes the cake. Absolutely. Blood and Nation's my number 3.
Yeah, for me, that and Stalingrad are like really, really great.
Yeah, Stalingrad's pretty good too. Yeah. All right, what are we down to? We're down to number 2.
Yeah, Balls to the Wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people that will swear up and down that this is the best Accept album of all time. Yeah, not quite for me, but I think it's absolutely great. Title track is great. Head Over Heels, great song. Guardian of the Night, London Leather Boys is kind of fun, right? Big production on this. This was kind of this I think was the album that kind of started them on that trajectory, and then it just kind of petered off from there. But it's still a banger of an album. Great songs on it. I prefer the raw ferociousness of another album over this particular one. But I always hated the cover. But whatever. It's ridiculous. The video is ridiculous. But I saw them on this tour, and they completely kicked ass. And
imagine you bringing that home from the record.
I remember when I brought it home. My parents were like,
"What the hell's he listening to?"
What the hell are you buying there? Head Over Heels is great too. I mean, there's a lot of really good songs on here. But so that's my number 2.
Yeah,
Balls to the Wall.
Balls to the Wall. All right, cool. Okay, Martin, what do you got for number 2?
Okay, my number 2, Balls to the Wall. I don't even mind that cover. I thought it was kind of cool. It's cool to see something artistic and artsy and photography and whatever. So, no, the cover never really bothered me.
But heavy metal hypnosis, Martin, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So the one thing that I like about British Steel, when I give British Steel a compliment, is I think there are 2 songs on there that are actually better songwriting than my favorite era of Priest, and that would be Metal Gods and Grinder. To me, this is Accept basically writing a bunch of Metal Gods and Grinders, 4, 5, 6 of them and putting it on the really stripped down, level-headed, no peaks and valleys sort of album. There's something about this album that is so uniformed and disciplined. I just love it. And I got this in the winter, so mine is the original, Lark overseas version. So I got it as an import, and it's just got this kind of cool winter melancholy to it, like a really cool kind of emotional through line. I find it to be really sober and level-headed. There's nothing on it due to the production. Really, there's nothing on it that's wild and crazy like most of Restless and Wild. It's just really, really kind of resolute and almost melancholy, and I think beautifully put together. So I just played this album over and over and over again for a year or two at the time. Obviously, yeah, we know this was the one that had the one big hit U.S. song, "Balls to the Wall," which is actually this album's kind of Enter Sandman in a way, right? The really catchiest tune. It's slow, it's very simple. But yeah, the other songs on it, like I say, some of them could have maybe felt like they could have fit on Restless and Wild, but not with this production. I just find this to be a super expensive, kind of sober. Like I say, it's almost as if British Steel had 5 or 6 songs as good as Grinder and Metal Gods. This would be kind of the record you'd get.
And that title track, no matter what era you've seen the band, that title track has always got to be the closer, right? It's like they're, Living After Midnight and whatever.
That's
for Priest. Yeah,
that's their calling card for sure. Yeah. So, I'm going to be a little contrarian on this because my number 2 is Restless and Wild, 1982. This is the home of a lot of the classic songs, a lot, that they played the other night. Fast as a Shark is just holy shit. And then, and when you see them in concert, they play that intro and then they go into it, and it's just that scream. My God, it's like the perfect opener. If Pete, that's probably the best possible introduction you could have to this band. There's nothing better, man. Restless and Wild, the title cut, Demon's Night, Princess of the Dawn, just very cool. You speaking of Judas Priest, Shake Your Heads it's got a real cool groove to it, and it actually reminds me a lot of Priest, that song in particular. Neon Night's another great example of a mid-tempo rocker with a cool hooky chorus, and then that lead break is just so cool. Man, Get Ready, another cool one. Very hooky. This had to be my number 2 just because it is the home of so many classic songs. But yeah, Restless and Wild is fantastic. These guys, they've got some really good ones. I mean, there's moments where these guys are like, this is the best shit on the planet. Moments when you're listening to these guys, and there's a lot of examples of that on here. So, anyways, that's my number 2. All right. What do we got for number 1, gentlemen? I kind of know already.
Yeah, well, it was my number 1 back in the day. It's still my number 1, Restless and Wild. It's a 5 out of 5 star for me. It's the first I ever heard. The song still kick my ass. You just talk about Shake Your Head, which I think is the unsung gem of this entire album. That song is so freaking heavy. The title track is so memorable. We've already talked about Fast as a Shark. Mark mentioned Princess of the Dawn before, which is great. Flash Rockin' Man, just start to finish. Demon's Night, Neon Nights, it's just all great. I like the rawness of it. I think Udo, sounds incredible on here, and the guitar riffs and solos are just great. The drumming is great. It's just classic early 80s heavy metal to me. So that was easily my number 1. This is the only one I didn't really have to think about too hard. Restless and Wild.
Cool. All right. Okay. Martin?
All right. So my number 1 is Metal Heart, and I actually called my Accept book Metal Heart. Unfortunately, this is long out of print. You can still get it as an ebook, But yeah, in the time-honored tradition, I name a lot of these books after my favorite albums, and I know it's kind of a poser choice, but this is where I say I had to go with my heart rather than my head, or try to like work it out mathematically. This record, the songs that I love on it, I like because they are kind of commercial, but I just love them so much, and that would be "Screaming for a Love Bite." What a gorgeous kind of melodic, just gathers up all your emotions. Such a great tune for that reason. "Metal Heart," of course, is not a commercial one. It's more of like a real Teutonic, Richie Blackmore sort of thing. It's their masterpiece. It's probably their Sales of Sharon, right? But "Midnight Mover" is another on that kind of slightly melodic feeling one. "Living for Tonight" as well. "Bound to Fail" is a super heavy one on here, and yeah, just there's a lot of different speeds. There's a lot of variety, and it's got a very like almost blindingly brilliant Dieter Dierks production job on it. It's just so meticulously recorded. And yeah, I just look at the track list, and it's sequenced right. It's got lots of creativity, lots of variety on it. But yeah, especially "Screaming for a Love Bite," which is kind of weird because it's actually that and "Midnight Mover" are the two most commercial songs on here, and they're probably my two favorite songs on it. Yeah, "Metal Heart" as well, but yeah, it's just effortlessly my heart goes with this one rather than trying to intellectualize it too much.
I can't argue that at all. And what's interesting, that album didn't really do too well here, but the last couple times I've seen Accept, they play a few songs off of that album, and they go, people are so into them live, and everybody's really singing along. It kind of reminds me when I saw Michael Schenker Fest a couple of years ago, and you had all the singers come out, and when they played the late 80s, early 90s stuff that he did with Robin McCauley, which are all much more commercial sounding stuff, everybody in the crowd went nuts, and everybody's singing along. And it's the same type of thing with the songs from Metal Heart. That album should have been so much bigger than it was, but I think people have a lot of fond memories of those songs. Either that, or they've warmed up to the album quite a bit in the decades since it came out.
It's like Priest playing Turbo songs. It's light relief, right? It's time to party, right?
Yeah. Yep. We kind of made fun of it back then, and we're like, it's not quite heavy enough. And now we're like, oh, but those are really, really great songs. Really well written.
Yeah. I just want to give a quick honorable mention, not really to this album, but Monster Man, Aiming High, and Man Enough to Cry. 3 songs from this album are easily in my top dozen or so Accept songs. This has some amazing songs. That's kind of like the self-produced correction. It's kind of like their flick of the switch versus the Mutt Lange, Dieter Dierks thing. So they're going back and trying to be a little raw again. And I don't like too many songs on it, but I just had to mention those 3. Every time I'm in the car and I've got that on my iPod, it's just straight to those 3 songs and then out again.
Yeah. Well, I haven't. I mean, Pete, you were saying it took a long time for Metal Heart to kind of I'm not there yet.
No,
but listening to you guys, I'll give it another shot. But I'm hearing that, and it's the commercialness of it, just right away.
I think for me, it's got their best kind of hooky songwriting out of all their albums, and it's like once you get past the whole, well, it's not that heavy. You don't even miss it not being that heavy. It's just because the songs are really, really memorable and really fun.
Yeah, I've yet to make that leap. That's why it's not here. But my number one, I mean, I knew our top 5 were going to be similar. Maybe a scrambled order, but I knew they were going to be similar. My number one has to absolutely be Balls to the Wall.
Great album cover too, eh?
Yeah. Album cover aside, what can you say about this record? I mean, it opens with Balls to the Wall. I mean, what a crushing riff. The guitars just sound so big and heavy. It's like Scorpions Who, oh my God, just kills it. I still remember seeing the video, on Much Music, our MTV in Canada, the 2 guys with the flying V's and synchronization, which they still do all that shtick live, Pete.
Yeah.
Right? and they're all playing Flying V's. I mean, they have 3 guitar players now, right? And they're all playing Flying V's, and they're all Wolf Hoffman signature Framus models for the geeks out there. So yeah, but they're still doing the Flying V thing. You know, I saw them again. I mentioned earlier I saw them opening for Kiss, and I just thought these guys are the heaviest thing going for the bands I was listening to at the time. It's like there was no agenda here. We're a straight up heavy metal band. I mean, look at these guys. They're not trying to be Bon Jovi. It's like look at Udo. He's just a screaming metal elf. It's just you know. And it's just got some amazing songs on it. London Leather Boys, you guys mentioned, is a great tune. Love Child, I always love. Turn Me On. Yeah, there he is. There's the man.
It's hard to believe he was ever that small and skinny, right? I mean, he's still kind of small, but
yeah. Well, I'm not tall, and I think he's probably about my height. He's probably like 5 and change, right? But Turn Me On, Lovers and Losers and Winners, Guardians of the Night. That's probably my favorite song on that record. Next to Balls to the Walls. That lead break is just absolutely killer. Those little riffs and licks that he's playing over those chords, just oh my god. When I listen to that album, man, I'm 17. I'm 17 all over again. And we all my buddies, we absolutely love that record. And so, if nothing else for nostalgia, anything that any record that'll make me feel 41 years younger, I'm all for. And that one does it for me every time. Absolutely love Balls to the Wall. So there you go.
Nice.
Cool. All right. So let's go around here. Pete, what do you got coming up? What on the channel? By the way, before you say that, I've got links to both Pete's channel and Martin's website in the description below. Go ahead. Sorry.
Let's see. So tomorrow, for folks who watch our Monsters Den show, which is our horror and monster movie show on the channel, which we do every week, we do this thing every couple of months. We do it's called the Secret Satan Challenge. So think of like Secret Santa. You know how you would do at the office, right? You'd have everybody would get like a Secret Santa, and you would, buy them something, and they wouldn't know who it's from, that type of thing. Well, here what we do is everybody who works on the Monsters Den show gets a Secret Satan, and that person assigns them a film to watch that they've never seen before, but they don't know who assigned it to them. So they go and they watch the movie. We all watch the movies we've been assigned. Then we go on the show and we record. We talk about the films that we had to watch, and then we try to figure out which of our colleagues assigned us that video. So that's coming up tomorrow. And then Martin and I are doing a kind of a fun show on Friday at the Funhouse, which may be the first of a multi-part one. We're going to be, we often talk about like the originators of heavy metal, right? Or, the bands that kind of kickstarted it all. And we, generally speaking, those bands are like Zeppelin, Sabbath, Purple, and Heap, right? So the concept of this topic is, well, what if those 4 bands never existed? Who would we consider to be like the big 4 or 5 that kind of jump-started what we know is, heavy music or heavy metal? So we're going to kind of go back to the 60s and look at all the other bands that were around at that time and pick, we've each picked a bunch of bands who we think could have been successors to the throne if those other 4 big bands were never around. So we're going to start in the 60s, and then maybe next week we'll go into the 70s and say, well, who would have been the successors, So we'll see where it goes, but it should be fun.
Well, the Osmonds with Bad Horsey.
Hey, you never know.
It's a heavy song. All right. What do you got coming up, Martin, book-wise?
Let's see. Book-wise, the 2 Alice Coopers are recent. The Damned one I really like, where I just review every song by the Damned, and then the big plush Bowie one. And then we've got the Contrarians video channel and my audio podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. The last one was just came out yesterday. That Undeniable Song. So those amazing, huge songs where a boardroom would just be losing themselves hearing for the first time. That sort of fantasy of hearing that song being played. So I think Pete and I actually even talked about that a little bit on a show, and that got me thinking, I'm going to just do a whole thing and go through a bunch of those. So yeah, that's so the audio podcast is every week, comes out every Tuesday.
Cool. So I did for those that are maybe new to the channel, I did an interview with Phil Schaus from Accept about 2 weeks ago. So go and check that video out. It's on my playlist. And next month, I'm doing another cover band show. I started a new show where I get together with my brother. We both played cover bands for years and years, and just all the trials and tribulations associated with that. So there'll be a new episode of that coming up next month. And then at the end of the month, the three of us will be picking another band. I'm not going to say who, but I'm going to say, man, I got a shitload of albums. So I'll leave it at that. Let you guess what that might be. If you want to help support the channel, folks, there's links below. There's Guitar Hack t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, all that good stuff. There's hats. There's a PayPal down there as well. If you don't follow me on Facebook, Instagram, all those links are below. I want to thank these gentlemen again. Every month they're good enough to come out here and talk some music, which is awesome. And yeah, we'll catch you all next month. Hang around, guys. Good night. Cheers.
All right.